The Clone Wars was a very transformative time for the galaxy, and especially for Anakin Skywalker. At the end of the Clone Wars, Anakin makes his fall into the dark side of the Force. But before that, he was just a sweet little kid that wanted to help anyone he could. Today, I'm going to be exploring 10 key moments during the Clone Wars that foreshadowed Anakin's fall into the dark side. I think these moments showed times that Darth Vader was peering into Anakin's life. After watching the Clone Wars, I don't think Anakin's fall into the dark side was as sudden as the prequels makes it seem to be. He's such a dynamic character that is not fully a hero but can still be convinced to do the right thing. That's one of the reasons why he is one of my favorite characters, and I would love to hear yours down in the comments. But now, without further ado, let's get into the video. One of the first times we see Anakin's emotions shifting towards the dark side during the Clone Wars was pretty much any time one of his loved ones were being threatened. This happened quite a bit during the Clone Wars, but during Season 2, we see Anakin taking very aggressive means in order to make sure Ahsoka was safe. In the Brain Invaders episode in the Clone Wars, there's an outbreak of this brain-controlling worm. The worm infects Barriss Offee and makes her quite aggressive, and Ahsoka is trapped on a ship with her. Barriss starts becoming violent towards Ahsoka because she is infected with this mind-altering alien worm. In order to stop these worms, Anakin tracks down one of the Separatists. He captures Poggle the Lesser and tries to get information out of him using violent means. Anakin takes a page from the dark side and uses a Force choke to get information out of Poggle the Lesser. Very much a Vader move, and this moment shows just how much Anakin is willing to go in order to save someone he deeply cares about. It also shows just how much Anakin has grown to care for Ahsoka. The inability to separate his emotions from his actions is the flaw that keeps growing and growing within Anakin as the Clone Wars progress. Now going back a little to Season 1, in the Zillo Beast episode, we see a bit of Anakin's tendency to write things off as just a cost of war. During this episode, the Republic has a problem with a rogue Zillo Beast. The Republic brought the Zillo Beast to Coruscant to do research. The Zillo Beast ended up getting loose, and the Jedi had to step in and figure out a way to stop it from destroying the city. Some of the Jedi, including Anakin, thought it best to kill the Zillo Beast. Padme tried her hardest to convince everyone that killing the Zillo was not the best option, especially since it was Republic officials who brought the Zillo to Coruscant in the first place. Anakin showed a bit of his darker side when he was willing to sacrifice a life instead of doing the right thing. This foreshadows Anakin's feelings towards doing what is necessary for the mission versus doing what is right. These darker side's emotions just grow within Anakin, especially during Revenge of the Sith, because he does anything that is necessary to keep Padme alive, even if those things were terrible for a Jedi to do. Another example of Anakin being so quick to write off things as a cost of war was during a mission with Obiwan. In Season 2, Anakin and Obiwan go on a mission together with Satine Kryze. Obiwan and Satine end up getting captured by Tal Merrick. Tal threatened to hurt a bunch of people if Obiwan or Satine didn't kill him. Obiwan or Satine didn't want to just kill somebody in front of one another. Anakin swoops in at the last second and stabs Tal in the back. Anakin's quick resorting to violence shows that he doesn't have the same respect for life that a lot of Jedis do. Another option could have been taking the detonator out of Tal's hand and capturing him, but Anakin quickly resorted to the most violent option and did so with no remorse. Very much a Vader move in the making. During Season 6 of the Clone Wars, we see another example of Anakin getting overwhelmed with emotion. Anakin cares so deeply about the people around him, and it sometimes takes control of his actions. In this episode, Anakin has a confrontation with Rush Clovis. Rush Clovis is an old friend and colleague of Padme Amidala. This particular colleague has always had an interest in a relationship with Padme. When Padme and Rush were privately discussing information about the Republic, Rush tries to make a romantic gesture on Padme. Padme was not reciprocating, and Anakin walks in at pretty much the most awkward moment he could. Anakin loses his temper and begins to force choke Clovis. Clovis tells Anakin to fight him without any Jedi tricks, and Anakin had no problem to agree with this request. This shows again how quickly Anakin lets his emotions take control over his actions, especially when the person he cares about most is involved. Another example of Vader peering into Anakin's life was when Obi-Wan was presumably killed during a mission. In this episode, Anakin definitely takes a few pages from Vader's book because he is acting with pure vengeance in his heart. The Jedi made Anakin believe that Obi-Wan had actually died, so Anakin was really grief-stricken. But sadly, he did let his emotions take control over him. In the 4th season of the Clone Wars, Obi-Wan goes undercover to help discover a plot to kill Chancellor Palpatine. In the process, Obi-Wan is targeted by a bounty hunter. The Jedi come up with a plan to fake Obi-Wan's death, and part of the plan was to ensure that Anakin believed that Obi-Wan had actually been killed. Letting Anakin believe that Obi-Wan had died was a key part of the plan because Anakin's reaction is what sold the bounty hunter to believe Obi-Wan was truly dead. First of all, this is a very evil thing for the Jedi to do, especially with how much Anakin did for the Republic during the Clone Wars, but that's another subject. The creators even play a rendition of Vader's theme during Obi-Wan's fake burial to showcase how much of Vader's feelings were inside of Anakin at that moment. Anakin was grief-stricken and stopped at nothing to track down who did it. He used extremely aggressive means like busting into a cantina and using the Force to throw an axe and intimidate people for information. He tapped into the dark side because he couldn't accept the loss of his best friend. Another time we saw the darker side of the hero with no fear is during the end of Season 5, where Ahsoka is being blamed for the attack on the jeditemple. During these episodes, Ahsoka is framed for an attack on the jeditemple, but Anakin, of course, believes in her. He was the only one that knew that she would never be capable of doing those things. So he does everything in his power to try to prove that the Jedi are wrong about Ahsoka. On his investigation, he is led to Asajj Ventress. He is so overcome with the need to free his padawan that he lets his emotions overcome him, and he attacks Asajj Ventress even though she is unarmed. He uses the Force to choke her and to get her to explain what is going on. In the end, it seemed Asajj had nothing to do with the attack, but she had her lightsaber stolen by the person that did. Anakin let the dark side get a hold of him in that moment, and the Vader inside of him kept growing further and further. Most of what these examples have in common is that Anakin is experiencing his loved ones being threatened and the aggressive nature of what he does in order to save them. In each example, Anakin uses more and more Force in order to keep the loved ones he has from being hurt. It's a terrible thing to have to go through, to be put in a position where your loved ones are being threatened multiple times a year. Now, the point of this video is not to bash Anakin, but it's to showcase an internal struggle inside the most important character of this franchise. Keep in mind, this is the same character that still does the right thing at the end of the Return of the Jedi. Anakin experiences his loved ones being threatened multiple times a year, which is a terrible thing for a person to go through. Anakin has gone through quite a bit in his life, but it doesn't mean that what he does is justified. There are still examples of Jedi that can get the mission done without letting emotions take control over them. Obi-Wan is a perfect example of this, and has always tried to teach Anakin to do the same thing. Anakin, being a very emotional character in general, usually ends up using a lot of his emotions to get the job done. But this ends up getting him too used to using dark side emotions. He uses these dark side emotions so often during the Clone Wars that it probably began to feel normal to him. He justifies really terrible things he's done in the war in order to save other people. That's why during Revenge of the Sith, when Anakin was faced with the toughest decision of his life, his answer to himself was that he was doing all of this for Padme. Everything he had to do was to keep Padme safe and nothing else mattered, which is the exact same justification that he used all throughout the Clone Wars. Unfortunately, this is just what Sidious wanted, and the story is a bit more complicated than that, but hopefully this shines a light on Anakin's transition into the dark side of the Force. So with that, that's it for today's video. If you want to see some strengths of Anakin Skywalker, check out this video I did where I go over exactly why Anakin was so good at war. He was really a great strategist to the Republic during that time period. Also, be sure to subscribe if you love Star Wars and comment down below what kinds of videos you want to see next. I hope to see you guys next time. May the Force be with you.